Welcome back to the part 2 of course, In the House with Pastor Mary Leonard. And of course, we're talking about your brother who was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Of course, before we went off the air, we never even talked about what schizophrenia was. Can you just give us in your terms, you don't have to define the whole thing, but what are the signs and symptoms that you saw in your brother?
Withdrawal is a big sign. And they said it was a chemical unbalance within his body. The signs that I seen was just total withdrawal. He didn't desire to be around people. He didn't desire to talk. He didn't desire to, as far as to do anything, watch TV, read a book, and his hygienes had came all the way down. He didn't desire to take care of, he just didn't care. And those are the things that I seen that I had to deal with. And he also loved to smoke.
Yeah, you did mention that.
You know, it's like a habit where they have to do something constantly. They have to do something. But I had to learn to help him reverse that.
Yeah, now you did mention the age that it started for him. What was the age? You did mention
18 was 18, the age where I seen it with him. He was a A1 student going all through high school. Wow. And he loved to read. He was A1. Honor roll the whole bit. But when he got in high school, 12th grade, it just happened. It happened. And all of a sudden, we're calling him to come out of his room to go to school. He's sitting there rocking. And I'm like, what happened? And how did it get to this? It was a mind blower. It was frustrating. And a lot of people go into denial. They don't want to deal with it. They're like, oh, I can't believe that you're my son, my daughter, my sister. You know, my father, I have to admit, my father, he's dead and he's going on to heaven. But he was like, I don't want to have nothing to do with him. I can't deal with it and whatever. You have to remain strong. It's something that we all have to deal with. Everybody on the earth has issues. We have family things that we'll get blessings and help with, but we have to first admit that there's a problem. We have to aim for it and go to the root and figure out how can we work this out.
Let me ask you a question. Is this something that was prevalent in your family line, or is it the first generation that actually had schizophrenia in
my family line?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, my brother was the first.
Wow.
I didn't know of anybody else in my family line that had it.
Wow.
And him I lived with, and just like I said, he loved to read. Very smart. In every subject in school, he got A's and B's. Wow.
Now, let me ask you, because I also wanted to touch on the issue of guilt. Because there are families that have really counseled before, and when they get to a point where they have to make decisions, and this does not have to do with schizophrenia alone. It could be any kind of mental illness, or even any diseases, any kind of disease process out there, diabetes, anything. It could be anything, or the elderly, taking care of the elderly. There's always the issue of guilt. And so a lot of times I've seen people feel so much guilt that they lose themselves in the care and lose themselves and totally forget that they exist and they matter too. What would you say to those people that are watching right now, and then they have to make a decision about their loved one and they're feeling incredibly guilty? What would you say to them? I want you to look in there and tell them. What would you say to them?
I would say you can't feel guilty, you can't feel ashamed. My mother was not ashamed, but her thing was, that's my son, and where is it that I went wrong? I tried my best to convince her and said, Mom, you have to do what you have to do in order for him to get better. And like I was saying before, in the first half, she went on home to be with Jesus, and she was like, okay, I'm not going to push him to do anything. I believe I did something wrong. I'm just trying to figure out where. Did I did something wrong at birth or where? But she, I love her, and she died and went on home to be with Jesus. But her thing was, I messed up. She died with guilt. She died with hurt. And I could truly say she died a little bit from a broken heart because my father had rejected her. And it was so much rejection that had came around her because they were, because she was like, her life had changed. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything because I don't want to take him out because he doesn't want to be around people. So it was so much shame and hurt behind that. And then when I seen the way that she had put all that guilt trip on herself, and see, thank God for his grace and his mercy. God is love. He don't put that on us. And then I seen her. And when she passed and went on home to be with the Lord, I knew better, and I said, God, I'm not going to take this just like that. I said, I'm going to push past it and get him help that they were saying it before that he should have got, that he didn't have. So only thing that I can tell anybody to hold on and push past, that it's you, because it's not you. It's things that happen that none of us can control to a certain degree. But if we just learn to say, I can make it, and you can do all things through Christ, is push past it, get the help that's needed, and don't live in denial. Because if you live in denial, you're not going to get the help that's needed.
And I remember when I was still in the business of social work, and I would see a lot of the patients that had major depressive disorder or even bipolar. And I literally seen parents or even sisters or brothers that they've gotten so guilt-ridden that they, instead of getting the help, they get really swallowed in that guilt. And if somebody's trying to tell them, no, this is not the time for guilt, this is time to take action, they don't want to hear it too. And so invariably, if they are now taken away from that person, they really not help that person really, because now you have a bipolar out there that can't even take care of him or herself anymore because you have spent the whole time that you're supposed to train that person or hand him over to the right person who can care for them. You've spent it with guilt, and now they're rendered helpless at that point. They're helpless at that point. My brother right now, he lives on his own. Isn't that amazing?
And he does what he does. He cooks, he cleans, he takes care of himself. He goes for his therapy. He takes his meds because he knows that that's something he has to do. I let him know. He's here and there. He gets in denial too. Yeah. Oh, I don't need this. I don't need that. I tell him straight up. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Unless God does the miracle, which He can. Yes, you can. Yes, you do have to take your meds. You do have to go through this. You need to go to therapy. You need to talk about it. See, because I'm related to him, his sister, his blood sister. So things that he's not going to talk about with me. When my mother, she laid in the hospital 3 months before she died. His thing was he couldn't even go, and he was like, why did this have to happen? Why? He just sat and rocked the whole time. I used to have to make him here and there at least once a week go up there to see her. And I tell him to sit in the car. He might go in for just 10 minutes. And then I tell him he could go. Because he would just sit there and rock and cry. But I had to make him, how can I say it? You have to face your challenges. That's it. We all have to face our hurt. That's it. In order to cross over and get delivered. Because he was like, how can this happen? He was already classified, and she kept me sheltered. If I didn't want to come out my room or see anybody, I could sit there. I could rock all day. She'll bring me my food on a tray and flowers and everything, and I can do whatever. And I used to go over there and in and out, and I used to be like, this is not helping. Nobody's getting delivered. Nobody's getting the change is not there.
Well, anyway, we're having such a blast. So this is part 2. And we're going to be right back because we're going to bring you part 3 where we'll wrap it totally up with Pastor Mary Leonard. Bye now.